What's going on, guys? So here we go again. We are at this place again where there is some legislation that now has just passed the House. And this is a very, well, let's face it, it's a scary and very dangerous piece of legislation. So I'm here with Phil Goss from USARK, Ryan and Erica McVeigh from Vivtech. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to try to answer your questions, and we are going to give you as much information about this as we can, because when something like this happens, let's face it, there's a lot of misinformation that floats around. We're going to get to the bottom of it right now, right here. So Phil Goss from USARK, just real quick, I take it, the majority of people here are reptile people. I would like to welcome all the fish people, all the bird people, small mammal people. This affects you guys as much as it affects us reptile people. So what we're going to talk about tonight isn't just about the reptile world. It's about all of us, bird people, fish people. If you keep a tarantula, this affects you guys as well. So we're going to get right into this. Phil, talk a little bit about what this is and what people need to know about it.
I have to talk tonight? I thought I would just come here to sit around and listen. Geez, I was misinformed from the get-go. All right.
Tonight, more than a pretty face today.
Tonight we're talking about the America Competes Act, which is federal bill number HR 4521. And a really important note from the get-go is we're not fighting the entire America Competes Act. It's a 3,000-page monster of a bill. But buried in that, USARK found on January 28th, the day it was introduced, that there are amendments to the Lacey Act. And that's specifically what we're talking about today. So people out there saying that we need to stop the Competes Act, that's a little bit wrong. And what we're concerned about is Section 71102, which is the 4 pages that make these Lacey Act Amendments.
Gotcha. And just, for people that don't know how this happens, when a piece of legislation that has no chance of being passed on its own is proposed, what they do is they do something called paper clipping, where they attach that amendment to a bill that is sure to pass, like the America Competes Act in this case. I don't know how it became legal in this country to do that, but a lot of really bad laws are out there because of paper clipping. And so it's not like, when they, set out to basically write this bill, they added this. This was added later by Rubio of Florida, who paper clipped this amendment to this bill. That's how the bill got in there. So what is it that USARK is doing right now to fight this?
Yeah, so right now the biggest thing is obviously we're trying to educate people on what's happening. So there's really 3 big parts of what's happening with these Lacey Act Amendments. One is it would reverse our federal lawsuit win, and that means it's going to be illegal to ship big snakes and 201 species of salamanders across state lines. That's immediate if it passed. The issue is we have no idea what species are going to be added next, because another part of this is that FWS gets a new emergency designation. They can literally list a species as injurious overnight. Once it posts in the Federal Register, it can be injurious that same day without any notice, without going through any due process, without notifying the public about it. And again, that should be kind of scary, because we're not talking about big snakes here, but the one big snake is a good example. The reticulated python, even the FWS science showed it could possibly only inhabit the southern 4 counties in Florida and the Brownsville area, Texas. So less than 1% of the U.S., and they listed it as injurious. So what other species could possibly live and become invasive or cause any type of issue in the southern 4 counties of Florida? So FWS has to look at, the United States as a whole and look at every climate in the United States. They can't just look at Florida's climate and say, we're going to do this just for Florida, because it's the federal government. And the third issue is it's going to create a whitelist. So what they're going to do is they're going to tell us what species can be imported by seeing what species have been imported in minimal quantities. And there's no definition for minimal quantities yet. So we don't know if that means if there's been 10,000 of a species imported in the last year, that's going to be on the whitelist. We have no idea what that number is going to be. But if your species is not on that minimal quantity whitelist, it's not going to be allowed to be imported in the U.S. And then we also assume that it's possibly going to end up on the injurious list.
And this can happen without public notification, without due process. This can happen by some guy sitting in an office somewhere saying, I don't like crested geckos. I think they can exist in Miami. Nobody now can, well, you can keep crested geckos, but you cannot transport them from state to state any longer, which is really dangerous because how many families only have a pet crested gecko? And if dad gets transferred from Kansas City, Missouri to Kansas City, Kansas, and they take that crested gecko over that state line, they could be arrested and charged with a federal felony.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
That's why this is dangerous, right there.
And the other part of it that makes it really scary is it leaves things open-ended. I had a discussion with somebody today asking about other bills and like why it's all fighting to fight it. It's all like all or nothing, and that's not generally it. Like I've worked with Phil to like we've worked together to write up draft bills for places and try and find places in the middle. And that's if there was a ability to do that on this, we'd hear it out. But because of the whitelisting, that's what scares. That should scare everyone. Yeah. Because that's taking a list of things that you can't bring in, and that's everything else under the sun is okay. Which means if they randomly find a brand new super endangered species of snake on an island, and that we can't bring any in, to even zoos can't get them in. It's just right because it would be a new snake species. It wouldn't be on the list. There'd be no precedent for it coming in before. So it might be a fight every single time to be able to bring in anything like that. And there's so many times, like they can say when they think, how many cresteds do you think are brought into the country every year? Not many. So not bringing in new blood from Europe, that stops for every single species of anything you keep that's not on that list.
All the stuff they're doing with crested geckos in Korea.
Yep. I mean, you're not even just talking more things, but like the difference, like you're talking about, we could have, there's species that there's only maybe 10 individuals in the U.S. that, you know, how amazing it would be to be able to get. People are always looking for, you know, more bloodline in the other countries or ways to maneuver different things for especially rare animals. And that could all stop. And then on top of it, stopping them from coming into the country, it also stops them from crossing state lines, which makes it even worse. So that means that everything that you just, that's everything. That means we're all isolated in our states. So your reptile show from now on is whoever you know within the border of your state that has anything you like. Other than that, you might not have access to it.
I'll put that into perspective. Take Tinley, okay? Tinley would be reduced to having vendors only from Illinois that can legally sell to buyers from Illinois. If you live in Milwaukee, if you live where you used to live, Ryan,
yep,
and you go to Tinley, buy, well, possibly a corn snake or ball python or whatever, bring that back into Wisconsin, you have unknowingly committed a federal felony. And there's nothing that we could do about it after that, after this may or may not go through. So it is dangerous. Look at Hawaii. You know, the sponsor of this bill is the senator from Hawaii. Jackson chameleons are non-native to Hawaii. They're protected by the Hawaiian government, but all they have to do is say, well, we can't tell the difference between a Jackson chameleon and a panther and a veiled chameleon. Let's just make all chameleons now on this list. There goes everybody's pet chameleon.
And you saw him do it when the B. salcitrid fungus became an issue. That's why Phil said the big snakes and 201 species of caudata. Right. Because that just there was hey, these are all never coming in again now.
Right.
And there was still a process for that. Like we still fought that. But there's still a process for that. This takes it all away where you could just wake up and everything. Like, and the other part of it too, and I had part of the discussion I had with somebody was they were reading the bill and they were reading it and interpreting it how a logical person would read and interpret it. Yeah. That this generally wouldn't be used. It's only used for these certain things. And that is totally probably how it's supposed to be read. However, when Phil and USARK and everybody else and everybody in the industry that reads these, when we read through that stuff, we have to read it not based on the exact intent of what it says, but how it can also be used by people who may not have that same intent. And I know this might be like, yeah, well, not even that. Sometimes it's a lack of understanding. Sometimes it's politics where I was telling them there's bills that get that have sponsors, and the sponsors don't even know what the bill is. They just got asked to put their name on something, and they need to look busy because that's what their job is.
3,000 pages in a bill. The senators voting on this have no clue what's in it. They have interns and clerks that give them the gist of it. Those clerks aren't going to say, "Oh, Senator A, B, or C, there's this clause in there about the Lacey Act. I don't know if you knew about." They don't even know that it's there.
Yep.
So, and we're not being mean to legislators right now.
No, not at all.
Oh, no, not at all.
What we're saying is absolutely true. I watched a 45-minute rant from a federal legislator. She was calling out all the other legislators saying, how many of you actually read the 3,000 pages of this bill? So she was even admitting that I don't know if I want to say most, but we'll just say a lot of legislators do not sit down and read these bills, especially when it's 3,000 pages. And it was 3,000 pages before. It was almost 3,000 pages before over 200 amendments were added to it. So we actually the finalized HR 4521 hasn't gone to the Senate yet because they haven't had time yet to add. Again, it was over 200 amendments, which is I don't know how many.
Because they had to buy more paper to print it.
It could be another 1,000+ pages. This thing may hit the Senate and be 4,000 or 5,000 pages long.
That's right. And that is a lot of pages to go through and understand. Out here in the private sector, we look at our government and we complain and we say, what are they doing? They're not getting anything done, blah, blah, blah. You also have to put yourselves in their shoes. They are busy 24/7. And to sit down and read a 3,000-word bill, I mean, I'm not as busy as a senator. I'm not going to read a 3,000-page document,
Since we're talking about this highlights why people need to contact their legislators, because if a legislator doesn't get, depending on the legislator, it may take 100 emails. Senators, it may take 500. Unless they get a mass onslaught of things with really the same subject line and really similar messaging, they're not going to go look in this now 4,000+ page bill and see what we're talking about. That's why it's important for you to contact these people, because as Dave just said and Ryan said, they're not sitting down and taking hours to read a 4,000-page bill. As their constituents, it's your job to contact them and tell them, don't do this. And also remember that your tax money pays their bills. They are literally paid to listen to you. So never feel bad about contacting your legislator. That's what they're there for.
Right. And when you are angry at them, and you show that anger to them, you're going to get ignored.
Yeah.
As you
would. Remember that, everybody has to remember, the senators in the government aren't out to get the reptile hobby. They're the tool that's being used by the animal rights groups to get to the animal hobby.
Bingo.
Most of those people, we've been to countless hearings and things. Most of the people on those boards have no idea. But that's okay, because you have to remember that, I don't know a lot about NASCAR. If you made a law about that, I wouldn't have a frame of reference.
Exactly.
So they don't have a frame of reference for reptile. So it's up to us to reach out to them and give them that frame of reference. Otherwise, they only get it from the other side. And they're not out to get us. They've only heard from people who are. That's where that comes from in that tension. So just remember, treat the senators, the people you're reaching out to, you're educating them on you're not defending yourself against them. You're educating them on our side and what they need to know in order to understand and make a better decision.
So please, people, listen to what Ryan just said. Do not contact legislators and call them animal rights activists or crazies, or don't be mean to them. Just be civil and professional.
They are the messenger.
Yeah.
They're the figurehead put at the top, but they're not the ones that literally know anything about what we do.
Correct.
Most of them don't even know that people keep reptiles.
Do not call them names and cuss at them, because not only will that just automatically make them disregard you, but when USARK or someone with a level head goes in and talks to them, they're going to immediately say, "Oh, you're one of the crazy reptile people who keeps cussing at us."
Bingo.
They're
going to talk to another senator and say crazy reptile people, and that's going to spread throughout Washington, and then we're toast.
That happened to us in Wisconsin with the Madison Area Herb Study. We were dealing with a couple people called in thinking, going extreme, even though we told them not to, thinking that people SWAT was going to break down their door. And one of the committee members actually called me and asked what was going on and why people were freaking out,
Right,
and they were
right.
getting really frustrated. So we actually had to reach out and push people to like, hey, relax. These people, they're not waking up going, that stupid reptile, I'm gonna go get him. Like, that's not, they have no idea who you are, and the fact that people keep a lizard in a tank is weird to them. Like,
It's very weird.
they're not against us. They're the tools that are used for the people against us. We just need to educate them. And when you take that time, this same Wisconsin thing, I ended up having the sponsor of the bill ban the animal rights groups from coming back and talking to him in his office after we went through it, and I educated him about, like, I talked to him about what this bill really meant and how it could really be interpreted. And he didn't see it that way, and was somebody who actually cared about animals and was on a board for a zoo. He thought this bill was going to stop people from putting baboons in their bathroom, which is insane, and we all want to stop that. But at the same time, the way it was written, it would allow it for nobody to have anything. So once we pointed that all out to him, he was excited to work with us. He stopped talking to the animal rights groups. He took out the crocodilians out of it. He added amendments to add the ZAA back into it, and like everything they didn't want, he did, because he realized that that's not what it was about. And we couldn't have had that kind of an interaction with him if I wouldn't have been able to come into that and have a solid conversation with that committee and be responsible and respectful and get that conversation rolling, so that when I left that committee hearing, he actually came over, pulled me aside and said, hey, do you have time to talk in my office? I want to know more. Like, that's where you get real results.
Yep.
Let me summarize that real quickly for everybody.
With respect.
Real quickly, Ryan McVeigh single-handedly stopped a state bill in Wisconsin because he went in and he was civil and he educated the legislators. That's what Ryan just got done ranting.
There's a lot of reasons why Ryan is my hero. That one's at the top.
But no, but here's the thing too. This is I'm gonna veer off on a minute here because I keep seeing, but this is a point that it's universal to our whole conversation. Stop asking people to support USARK. Stop putting out there, support USARK. You know why? I support a lot of stuff. I don't financially or actively get involved in it. Like, I support people don't hit their kids, but I'm not working with like outreach groups and things. Like, I support them. If I can do something, I think that's great, but I'm not outreaching that stuff. That's probably a bad example. I don't care, whatever. There's a ton of organizations out there that I support, but I'm not actively involved in them. And that's what people need to understand, the differences here. And I can say things like that because I'm not the USARK guy, Phil, so I'm helping you. So, but no, think of like supporting USARK is great. That's kind of like supporting animal welfare. Everyone supports animal welfare and treating animals like respectfully. Everybody that has reptiles should support the only organization fighting for them to keep the reptiles. But saying I support them is kind of like sending thoughts and prayers. It doesn't really do anything except make you feel good.
I can see your
But
point.
what does actually do something is becoming a member. And there's a couple reasons that matters more than just, like, I would rather that you become a member for $40 a year than donate a $75 thing to an auction. That money helps. It's all needed and important, and please never stop when you can.
Yes,
Do it. Donate whenever you can.
Yeah.
Yep, but there's a part of this. So when the big snake ban happened and Phil was fighting it, and we got a preliminary injunction that allowed the shipping of big snakes again, it didn't allow it for everybody. USARK represents all reptile keepers, but when it comes down to things like that, USARK represents its membership. And if its membership is 1,500 people, that's not real, which it's not that bad, but it's not enough that we want to talk about it. It should be way more. I should be able to celebrate how huge it is.
I think
but that's the thing. Everybody needs to be a member. That's the only way that you actually make a huge difference. I mean, one of the biggest ways you make a difference with USARK. And it's the only way that you truly are protected during these lawsuits.
I think what your point is, and I agree, is that when Phil and USARK goes to Washington and they say, we represent X number of people, you say, we represent 1,200 people, everybody's going to go, what? Huh? Who are you? What?
Yeah.
If you go in and say, hey, we have members, and you can be a member for,
$5 a month.
So I'm not going to comment on that. But if you are a member of USARK, then USARK can go to Washington and say, we represent 200,000 people. Now we've got their attention.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, again, I'm not trying to make it a push, a thing. You don't have to support it if you don't want. That's cool. Not everybody gives a crap about their hobby. But I particularly do, and so does Vivtech and everything we work for. And we donate every month as much as we can. And I implore everybody to do that. Like the $5 a month auto pay, I don't even know if, like, we added to it. I don't even know if I could go through my bank statement and find where it is. Like, it's a little tiny bit. I spend more when I stop at the gas station and grab crap food on a stop. So, like, that to save the one thing that I can't imagine my life without this existing. And while they may not kick down my door and take it, these bills and the things that animal rights groups are continuously doing, which is another thing, they don't sleep just because you don't hear about it. This is continuously happening all the time, every day, in every state, in every county, federally, all the time. So we need to stay diligent. We need to be members, and we need to pay attention, and we need to all focus on this.
I agree.
Like,
all right, so
it would be nice. But I was gonna say, it'd be nice to get to a point where we don't have to freak out and then wait, and then everybody does nothing. Like, what if we just
Ryan, shut.
Whatever.
All right, so I totally dig your point. You're very passionate about it. That's why I wanted you on this. But I want to move on real quick here and then I'm going to go to Phil. But I've seen some people have done super chats. Brian Bodie, I see your $100 there, man. Thank you. You rock. Brian Bodie, Reptile's right there with the coolest pied ever, which is going to be mine one day. But Brian, thank you for that $100. I'm every penny that we get off of this super chat, off this live video, is going directly to USARK. So that money is not going to me. That money is going to USARK. I'm going to forward it right over to them. Why, Phil, we're going to go to you in just a second. But Erica, I see a lot of comments and a lot of questions here. Let's get to some of those real quick, and then we'll go.
Perfect. And no, somebody asked if I ever get a word in edgewise. The answer is no, I don't.
On this live stream and in life.
So
she talks way more than you think. Don't worry.
Anyway, one of the questions that came up was, how much time do we have before this actually goes to a vote? How much time do we have to take big action?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we've kind of put it out there, but we haven't made it completely clear, I don't think. So what happened was HR 4521 passed the House. As we mentioned way back on January 28th, the Senate already passed a similar bill, which was S-1260. It was called the U.S. Innovations and Competition Act. It basically does the same thing that HR 4521 claimed to be doing. So now what's going to happen is these two bills are going to be what's called reconciled, which basically means you're going to take two bills and merge them into one. What's likely to happen is that S-1260 is going to take over the America Competes Act because the Senate is generally a little more powerful than the House. But then the House people are going to push to get these extra amendments added onto it. So HR 4521 is probably not going to go through the Senate for a vote. What's going to happen is, again, HR 4521 is going to be merged into S-1260, and S-1260 will probably be the bill that actually goes to the Senate for a vote, but we don't know what amendments are going to be added to it. So the point of everything now is, again, we're not trying to stop the America Competes Act. We're trying to stop Section 71102, which are the Lacey Act Amendments. We do not want them ending up in the bill that ends up merged between these two massive bills. The S-1260 that I mentioned was it was 2,400 pages. I mean, these are just massive bills.
And is USARK working with PJAC, with bird people, with fish people to get this done?
So yeah, USARK is the group that found this buried in this 3,000 page bill, and we put out the alert on January 28th. I know the following week, a lot of other groups started picking up on it. PJAC was one of those groups. I think they put out their alert late on Monday, which was the Friday after we had put it out. So yeah, certainly. I mean, I actually am on a couple committees for PJAC. So yeah, PJAC is putting messaging out there. The NAA, the National Aquaculture Association, is putting messaging out there. I think they actually had an alert out before PJAC, but again, that was because I had some emails with them. So yeah, any groups we're more than happy to work with. I alerted aviculture to it. So yeah, this, like Dave said earlier when we started, this affects a lot more than reptiles.
Yeah, so anybody out there too, if you're part of another organization, or if you work with, people who work with other animals, exotic animals, even like this is literally not just like it's really anything other than dogs, cats, and farm animals. If it's an organization that works with anything other than dogs, cats, or standard livestock, it's possible risk, and they should know about it.
And for any groups, USARK is absolutely fine. We do not care if you take and plagiarize our alert. Just maybe at the bottom put some credit saying thanks to USARK for alerting this to us or something like that. But I mean, we already did the messaging. I mean, obviously you want to tweak it if you're aquaculture or aviculture or exotic mammals or whatever you are. You might want to change some language, but feel free to go and copy and paste our directions to contacting senators or whatever, please.
And on that note, in the description of this video is all the links to find who your state senator is. I put those all in the description, along with a lot of other links that you guys should check out, and a lot of key points about this piece of legislation is in the description below. Erica, do we want to go to another question?
Wait,
Yep.
hang on. Let me
Wait.
up with Erica. I'm still on that question. It was a pretty in-depth one. What's going to happen now is we're encouraging people to keep using the USARK alert and contacting senators, but the Senate is about ready to take a 2-week recess. And when they get back from recess, they're going to be worried about the budget because Congress has run out of money. They've spent all our tax money. So they have to come up with a new budget. So honestly, I hate to even say this almost, but it's going to be 4 or 5 weeks. And that's when we need to be even louder. Right now, we need to be loud just so they're constantly getting these trickle messages in. But in 4 or 5 weeks, USARK is going to post another type of way to contact the legislators. And when they get back and get through that, whatever the heck I just said they have to do, give themselves some more money, that's when we're really going to want to hit up the Senate hard.
So this is going to be a fight that's not going to be over tomorrow.
No.
And this is not going to be the only fight that we are going to fight on this level. They are going to come at us and come at us again and come at us again. And guys, if it wasn't for USARK, we would not have any idea that this was in there. We would not be talking about this right now. This is what USARK does. And without USARK finding this, it could have passed without anybody knowing about it. Mm-hmm. And one day, some federal agent would, WC, whatever, would pull you over and say, oh, you're towing this? You have this in your back seat? Well, that's on a list and you need to come with me now. That could actually happen here in the land of the free.
And the thing too to remember is that this, even if this amendment gets dropped and makes it out of this and it doesn't become part of it and they move all this act forward and it's all great, it's going to come back. That federal lawsuit, USARK was the tiny little ant that took down the giant Tyrannosaurus, and they're not cool with it. Like, no. They're not happy that we proved that they were illegally using their law. So now they're going to change their law so they can keep going back to abusing it like they were, but legally this time. So they're not ever going to stop trying to put this in. So until either they just forget that it's somebody forgets about it, or they get it. That's what's going to happen. So this kind of stuff, that's why I say we need to be diligent. We need to be aware. It doesn't always need to be 100 or 0. It'd be really great if the hobby could just coast at 60% here and there, not just 100 or nothing. We can be that, be alert, be diligent, pay attention, and take the couple seconds. I know it's annoying. I know you might have to sit at your computer, click 8 buttons, but that email's not hard to send and it makes a difference. Even if you just copy and paste and hit send, and at least you did something. That's better than nothing. And again, I'm going to keep saying support what USARK is doing by actionably taking actions and doing things like sharing and becoming a member and talking to people about it and sharing it with other people and being part of the discussion, not just somebody that hopes someone else is going to save them.
I would like to propose this. This, where is it? Right there is one of my gargoyle geckos. You buy the lizard, you buy the enclosure, you buy the water dish, the furniture, the food. Those are all costs involved in keeping my little buddy over there happy and healthy. But there should be another element to the cost of your lizard or snake, and that should be a membership with USARK.
I look at it like when I was a member of a lot of as an engineer, there's a lot of professional societies, and those societies are $2,000 a year to be a part of. You know what I got out of it? A really thick textbook. That's what I got out of it. Like, didn't save my hobby in my life and the thing that causes me joy every day. And I still was a part of that. I consider this the dues to responsible reptile keeping is your membership to USARK.
I agree. All right. So, Erica, let's go to questions.
Sweet. Other than just sending out emails, Phil, is there anywhere that people can go to, I'm assuming by protest, they mean peacefully and wonderfully protest in a way that, I love that I said that word and you popped up immediately. But protest by like educating. So like educational events or anything like that. Is there other ways that they can help spread this message other than just emails? Or
I popped up because I thought you were getting ready to say sign a petition. And I was getting ready to say that those online petitions are a complete waste of time and don't waste your time and don't feel like you're doing anything when you sign them. That's why I popped up. So again, it's fine if after you email your legislator that you want to go sign some change.org petition, but please, please, please don't. It's not even worth sharing those things around. They carry no weight with legislators. And what you need to do is contact them directly through emails and their websites, and call them and fax them and send letters. Back to what Erica said, at this point right now, no, there's no, organized protest or anything to do anything about this. And like I said, even if someone does want to do something like that, let's give it 2 or 3 weeks, because like I said, Senate's on recess. When they come back, they're going to be worried about the budget. So there may be a time for that, but now's not that right time. But if someone wants to start a conversation about that, I guess something could get organized. But as Ryan pointed to earlier, any protest like that needs to be organized. It needs to be civil. It needs to be professional. And what you want to tie into that protest is not just going to DC and standing in a circle and saying kumbaya. You want to get a group of people. You want to have your little protest on the lawn, but then you want to head in to the offices and drop off a sheet saying that you object to these. It needs to be more than just showing up and doing a protest and posting a bunch of pictures on social media.
I think if there's something else between now and then that would be good to do, and I'll put this on for us to work on offline, but I'm sure we could come up with some sort of a flyer with a QR code that we could put up for people to go post around. Like, go throw it up on your local grocery store message board. Get some people's attention to the fact that they might be about to lose their pets and they don't know it. Like, you guys that are watching this, you have to understand how much more diligent we are because we're so used to being attacked and we understand this part of the community. The other people who are potentially looking at something from this don't see it. And the majority of people who are mom with families with their 1 or 2 pets, they don't see this side of the industry. They don't see the legislation. Most people don't even know if their snake is legal to have in their township or not, or that that's even a thing they should look up.
So the ordinance
it's totally unknown to them. So if you're going to think about how to get it out in front of people to make a big change, I think about ways to talk to people who aren't just reptile people. Like, alert the reptile people. Let the other reptile people know that, hey, our hobby is at risk here. And no, they're not going to bust down doors and steal all of our animals, but it's little tiny cuts. That's how eventually they take something down, is slow little cuts. And that's what this is if we don't pay attention. So get out and tell as many people as you can. Let your family know that if they have a ferret, that's not a normally domesticated pet. I promise ferret people, probably very few of them have ever thought they could make this illegal, or my pet could be illegal, or hamsters, or any of those small mammals that are cute and fuzzy. Norwegian dwarf rabbit, not native, it depends on what they want to make domestic or not, or what they want to put on that list. It could be any of that stuff. So it's really any single person that has a pet that's not a dog, a cat, or livestock should know about this.
Dang it, Ryan. So before we get back to Erica, since you brought up mammals, again, mammal people unfortunately need to be just as concerned as the fish and the reptile people, because how this is being pushed in DC is that it's a way to stop the next pandemic. Reptiles and fish don't carry viruses that people can catch. Mammals do. Mm-hmm. So in addition to these Lacey Act amendments, there's actually an amendment that was added later after the original 2,912 pages that bans minks and mink farming. And the reason they're doing that is because they're claiming that minks are COVID carriers and that minks are going to be the source of the next pandemic. So if you think they can't make the same argument for ferrets and hedgehogs and sugar gliders, you're absolutely wrong. Again, that's another way that this got made it through the House and got added to this House bill, was because they're saying that this is going to help prevent the next pandemic.
Well, that's how it was before. They were trying to do that, and originally it had said that they were going to try and ban any animal that could cause a human illness. Guess what salmonella is? It's in every reptile's stomach, and it causes human illness. Like, that can be the simple justification they make when they make this stuff so broad and gray. And that's what we're fighting. We're fighting the gray, broad, sweeping, non-logical aspect of this. We're not against legislation. We're against stupid, sweeping legislation that doesn't make sense.
So, Phil, what happens if this bill is passed into law? What do we do?
Yeah, if these amendments pass, it's going to be ugly. So we wouldn't know initially. Obviously, we would try and work with FWS as soon as we could, but nothing would happen for a year. The only thing that would happen immediately is that the species of large constrictor snakes and 201 species of salamander that are already listed as injurious in the Lacey Act, you couldn't ship those across state lines. Then we would have about a year wait before FWS told us what the whitelist was. The only other thing that could happen during that 1 year period is, again, FWS has this emergency designation. They could go and ban boa constrictors or ball pythons or sand boas or crested geckos or leopard geckos or whatever, guppies. I mean, I've heard talk that there are people at the federal level that want to ban guppies because guppies can live in Florida. I mean, let that sink home. We're talking about guppies. How much smaller is a guppy than a reticulated python? You can't get
That's right.
more opposite ends of the spectrum. It has nothing to do with size. It has nothing to do with possibly causing serious bodily harm to a human. It has to do with being any type of invasive in Florida and causing, or not in Florida, but in the U.S. and causing any type of impact on natural wildlife.
What scares me is that some person who can't tell the difference between an iguana and a monitor lizard thus gets to make that decision, and it's final.
That's another issue. We cannot expect FWS law enforcement officers at these ports to be able to recognize the hundreds of different types of cichlids, for example. Especially as babies. I mean, give me a break. Who can identify the hundreds of species of baby cichlids or geckos? We can use geckos since we're talking mainly about reptiles here, but FWS inspectors cannot be obligated to do that. And as we've already seen with the Endangered Species Act, sometimes species get listed just because they look like another species.
Right.
So that's another huge issue that we got to worry about.
That's right. Erica, let's go back to questions from people.
Sweet. So really quick on the mink thing, because the mink part actually reminded me on two things. So California actually, I think, banned outright ferret owning. So ferret people are aware of those kind of bans. So y'all know how to deal with that. But also, one of the things to consider with this being put towards pandemic prevention is that felids actually can get this. So your large cats, a lot of large cats ended up becoming sick with it, and domestic cats were tested through two of the major laboratories actually within the United States, and were found to have some positives too on occasion. So that is something to consider, is that they can start even looking at using this for domestic purposes too down the road. So nobody can get comfortable with this bill. So one of the other questions was, and it actually goes to genetics, is if we can't move our animals across state lines and things of that nature, how are we going to, as a hobby, prevent genetic bottlenecking? And is that even considered when these kind of things are proposed, is actual animal welfare?
They don't think about any of that. That you got to remember, you're not. I've said this before, but I really need this to stick. The legislators and stuff aren't thinking about the hobby or how it's going to be affected, and the people writing the bills know what the hobby is and hope that it dies and we're all horrible people. Like we're not. We are very bad people in their eyes. They don't care. Their only goal is to stop us from having pets, stop animals from being at zoos, stop. We should all be vegan. no pet animals should ever come in contact with a human. They're actually actively against conservation efforts as well in a lot of cases. They won't stop the Walmart from showing up, but they'll stop you from moving the turtles to save them.
All right.
Like, it's that kind of stuff. So these people aren't going to logically hear your thought and how it's going to affect breeding or genetic bottlenecking. That's their goal. The goal is genetic bottleneck it until there's nowhere else to go, and we can't produce any more viable animals. That's literally this. As crazy as this is, and it sounds bad, but that's the whole idea behind adopt, don't shop. If you can only adopt pets, eventually there's no more animals to be adopted, and there's no one else that's been breeding them, so they just disappear. And that's the goal of this stuff, is to create things that sound really good because we want to give an animal a good home. Who wouldn't want to adopt a new pet versus shop from a puppy mill, horrible breeder, blah, blah, blah. That's a great story. But the other side of it is what people don't see is that eventually then there's no pets. And with genetic bottlenecking and the states being cut off, that's not even the states being cut off. Like, the genetic bottlenecking is, imagine how many species you're not going to have access to because someone in your state doesn't have it. Or just the fact that it's all going to be cut off. So whatever you have, that's what you have. And everything else that comes in or out is going to have to be black market. It's going to cause a black market. People are going to, that's the only way. And it's going to be bad. It's just, it forces people who are law-abiding citizens that care about their animals to have to take unnecessary actions in order to just take care of the animals that they already were taken care of and loved.
Ryan, sorry, I got to, again, go off on a little mini tangent. I'll try not to soapbox too long, but I'm an animal person. I'm not a big snake guy. I'm not a leopard gecko guy. I mean, all animals are cool, and I'm passionate about all animals, but dogs and cats are being attacked just as much as reptiles are, whether you see it or not, because maybe you just follow USARK and you don't realize that the same group's trying to shut us down or trying to shut down dog breeding. But if you promote only adopt, don't shop, I just want you to think about this. Every dog that you get from an animal shelter is spayed or neutered. If we could only get dogs from animal shelters, there will be no more dogs in 10 years because every dog from an animal shelter is spayed and neutered. I mean, you really got to stop and think about this. Again, if we could only adopt, don't shop, all animals had to come from shelters, that would be an end to pet dogs and cats in 10 years.
And that's what we're trying to show people too with a lot of this stuff is, this is why Phil or me and Erica, when we read this stuff, this is why we have to look at it and go, okay, if I was an unethical, horrible person that didn't have a soul and hated animals, how would I use this to stop this? Because that's literally what we're fighting against. And then going back to the senators and the people who are promoting it and saying, this is actually how it could be used and the effects that you may not see. Because, again, like adopt, don't shop. It sounds great. And if you pitch that to somebody, hey, we have so many animals that need homes. Why would we let people keep breeding? It's a noble thing to want to do. And a lot of people would get behind that because there's a big emotional thing there. And it sounds like the right thing to do. And it is when you have a chance, if you have, great. But at the same time, if you make it a law where you can't breed anything anymore, then you don't have anything at some point. Like, that's the whole point. And at some point, a lot of these reptiles are going to get inbred within the states. You're not going to be able to get species you want. You're not going to be able to get the new color morph that happens or the new species that somebody's finally. Imagine if somebody cracks breeding Bolin's pythons. Guess what? All of them are stuck there. Like, you can't get one. It's cool that they did that, but none of us get to do anything with it. So we just high five them.
Well, this goes beyond just keeping and breeding, because what's going to happen is that your enclosure manufacturers are going to go out of business. All your food for your reptiles, they're going to go out of business. You won't be able to properly house and properly feed your reptiles unless you make your own food for them. And that's the other side of this very scary piece of legislation being passed. And I don't think that people really kind of realize that that is going to be the after effect of something like this happening. And that is a terrifying thought.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Erica, we're quiet. Ask a question.
Yeah. Let's
Erica.
First question.
That was your cue.
It's dark in here. Now that everybody's crying at home, bring us back.
Yeah, right. Hey.
All on you.
Right.
Save the day.
I'm talking. So before I go on to the questions, I do want to give shout outs to everybody who's donating. So there is Terry Sheffield, who is awesome. Nathan C. JubyRoaches.com. Dave, they just donated $500 to USARK.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Gina Ruck's been donating. Gargoyle Exotics. I'm so sorry, I'm gonna butcher this. Camouflage?
Camouflage.
Yeah.
There you go.
$100 donation to USARK because they're absolutely wonderful. Christina Hills donated. Cole Deviler, I think is your last name. I'm so sorry for that. And then we also had some others on here that I'm trying to go through, such as BC Pythons, Maria, I'm so sorry, Hoder. It's a very lovely name. Shane Adamson also donated. We also have Adam Dotree that donated. Reptile Mafia donated. Troy Goldberg's Tropical Gargoyle actually donated $100 to USARK. There's been quite a few, including like Gecko Galaxy, DBCB Exotics. Just everybody.
This is awesome.
This is amazing. Jack Oliver, The Pet Shop donated $100. Paul Taylor donated. ECW Corns donated as well. Brian Bode donated $100.
Brian Bode, yep.
ReptileMountain.tv donated $200. Cole Wood has donated. Tarantula Collective donated $100 to the cause.
Awesome.
Justy Zambia also donated. Chad Gaines donated $100 as well, as Intrepid Exotic donated. Zach Miller, Desiree Monet, Des, she donated too. Nico B has donated. Michael Kane donated. J4 Flower Horns donated. My gosh, guys, you just started off.
You guys are awesome. This is great.
Super cool.
Laura Wilcox, just buckle in. These people deserve some serious shout outs on this one. I had to listen to your monologues. You can listen to this one. KY Constrictors has also donated, and I just cannot believe how many donations. But it actually all comes out to Christina Hill. She started the whole entire thing. So thank you for that one. And we do have one question that is from Christina Hill. Oh, and Brug just donated, as well as the Serpent Smiths, right as I said that, and then the Veranded guy and Toasted Media, because I didn't get enough shout outs. Has anyone considered the impact that this would have on scientific community and the research we depend on these animals for? The interesting part was the second part that I'd like you guys to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the scientific community came up and said, FWS, what the heck are you doing, when they listed the 201 species as injurious, because some of those species were actually native to the U.S. So actually a whole lot of scientific people and biologists and academia said, what is going on here? How are we going to get these animals across state lines for different types of testing and research? So yeah, certainly FWS knows that was addressed, and we still have 201 species of salamanders on the injurious list.
And that's,
Robbie,
that's the other
thing. That you rule.
That's the thing I keep like trying to put out there too. Again, remember, we're logically looking at these bills going, this doesn't make sense. And why would they do that? It's because you have a group of you have multiple organizations that are pushing these bills to senators who are making money by putting their name on it and pushing it. Like, logic and reasoning is not always part of this process. If you've ever watched anything with government, it's not a part of a lot of their processes. So just realize that we can't always logic our way out of this. We have to push back, and that's where a lot of this action comes from again. And while this is so cool that people are donating so much, also still make sure to be members. I just want to keep pointing that out.
Yeah.
Be a member.
It's not that the politicians, they just simply don't know that this exists. I mean, if they're not a part of the reptile world, the bird world, the fish world, whatever, they have no clue that it exists. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of hobbies out there that we have no clue that people are into this. And so one of the things that I would like to encourage people when they call their senators is not to accuse, but to educate.
Yeah, please listen to what Dave just said. They don't know. You cannot You cannot expect, it's just like going to a doctor. You cannot expect a doctor to be a specialist in every type of medicine. The
Correct.
same with these legislators. You can't expect them to know everything there is in the world. So you're going there to educate them. And if they don't hear from you, they're not going to know. So in the world of lobbying, there's a saying that goes around called the world is run by those who show up. So here's the way to look at this. If the animal rights groups who don't want us to keep these animals are the only voice that the legislators hear from, this stuff passes. That's
Right.
why it's so important for you to contact your legislators and tell them your side. Otherwise, they're only going to hear from the animal rights groups.
That's correct.
And being that I've gotten their packets that they hand out at those, it's not real great. And it's very, a lot of it's just not true too. A lot of what they use for their examples or they cite, I had an entire page in the back of this packet that was citing all of their resources. More than half of them were news articles of someone that saw a snake, and it was just an article of somebody that saw a snake. There was no picture, there was no proof, there was no nothing. It literally could have been a garter snake. That's all it was. But that's like, they'll use that as how snakes are taking over the country and getting out everywhere. And it happened in New Hampshire, so there must be retics in New Hampshire. And it's like,
Right.
There was somebody who thought there was a retic in western Wisconsin. It was a bull snake. They said it went all the way across the road. Those things don't get longer than 6 feet. It literally can't span one lane. But people get excited, and that's where that stuff comes from. So, like, that's the information that they're getting given. And a lot of times that's where you get senators that are like, holy crap, why? And then by the time we get there, if it's only one or two of us, it's one or two of us going, no, that's bad. We keep animals. But what all they're if we don't bring the other side of it to them, they just see that side of it. And when we show up, we just look crazy from the get-go. We've got to show them that there's another side, and that's where that educational part comes from. None of us have a problem showing up at a fair or a park or, with the local herb society, stuff like that, and showing off our animals and talking. I love doing that. I work with a lot of people that love educating. It's the same thing. You take the same stance. You educate them like you're talking to a group of people at a church fair or something. It's the same thing.
Right. They're not our enemy. They just don't know.
Yeah, a lot of times when you give them the right information, they're animal lovers too. Like,
right.
People generally love animals. Like I said, what happened with that senator? I didn't expect that, but he was an animal lover. And as soon as I showed him the way that they were writing it and why they were doing it, immediately changed his tune and was right on our side. And still ended up calling me after even after it was gone and seeing if there's anything else we ever needed help with. Like, that's reaching out might actually end up being not only beneficial in letting your senator hear what you think, but also, or raising it to them in the first place, but also giving them the insight to possibly push back. I ended up finding out one of my senators years ago that I went to talk to about a bill owned a ball python in college. Immediately changed the whole conversation
Absolutely.
we had from then out.
Because you made that connection with them, and that's the difference. So real quick, I want to go, it just flashed past my feed there. Erica, what did Tarantula Collective just ask there? Something about tarantulas.
I'm writing down so many things as I go here.
Yeah.
They actually want to know, can you confirm that tarantulas, arachnids, and other invertebrates are actually at risk on this act? Because they aren't specifically named, but it just seems in general that they're...
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should not be impacted because they should be regulated by the USDA and not FWS. However, we've also seen FWS list species because of a risk of disease, which was B-sal for salamanders, and technically FWS should not be regulating because of a disease threat. That should also go through the USDA. So invertebrates should not be included in this, but we certainly cannot make any promises.
Well, and it's the Lacey Act, so if they open it up to a white list, wouldn't that kind of just cover that anyway, unless they're on it?
Again, it could, but again, invertebrates should be regulated by USDA and not FWS. But I'm not going to say that invertebrates are safe.
Well, who does FWS work? That's the ESA too, right? Though.
Yeah, but that's
right. But I'm just
Yep.
All right, so let's see if we can wrap this up. I do love how as soon as I said not a penny of that money goes to me, that all these donations came in after I said that. Thank you, everyone. No, I'm kidding. That is really, really awesome. I'm watching all of the donations come that is super awesome that everybody is banding together on this, because that's exactly what we need to do, is band together on this. We just lost Phil.
We're good. He'll come back.
He can't quit. He's gonna come back.
Phil?
He can't leave us. I know where he lives.
Did a meteorite hit his house, or what's going on right now?
Okay, while we're trying to find Phil, we also want to give mad love to Tommy Arton, Nathan C., and Gina Ruck, who are right now in the middle of a competition back and forth over who can donate more to USARK, apparently. And I'm living through this whole thing. Marie Rollins, who's been donating, Jay's Reptile, Derek Pied Retex, the Chameleon Academy donated $200, Jamie Brush, Sam Knable, I'm so sorry. Fairy Tale Dragons for $100. HB Reptiles also donated $100. Burning Heart Exotics donated $200. The Reptile Super Show donated $500. Dave, did you see that?
Yeah, Rami.
Yeah, that's why I said Rami. I just saw that. Yeah.
Yep.
And then your friend Catalia also donated, as well as Mac Lorenzo.
Awesome.
So that's another thing too. Like, pay attention to some of the names that she's talking about, like the Reptile Super Show. The owner of one of the largest groups of shows in the country is putting money into this. Like, if you go to the USARK auctions and you pay attention, that's another thing. Pay attention to who cares. Big people in the industry are at the front of every table. People like Todd Goodman throw in a lot of money at USARK, and he doesn't do it to show off because he's Todd. He does it because he gets why this matters.
Sure.
When you watch the people who put money into this, it's people who are part of this industry and people who know that it matters. The auctions, the shows, all that stuff. You start paying it. Look at who's talking out there about this. It's not just anybody out there. It's people who are very invested in this industry and who have a lot to lose, just like you guys do. We work incredibly hard to let everybody know, but Phil's an awesome guy, but he can't do it all. And like me and Erica, Dave, we all help as much as we can, but even all the people you see doing these videos and putting it out there, we need all of you and all of your friends and your family and everybody to be paying attention and spreading this around. Even if you get Nana to send in an email, real grumpy grandma emails work real good. Get Nana real angry, get her on a venting session and let her write her congressman.
I am telling my mom that you just called her a grumpy old Nana. She's Nana for our kids.
Well, we got back. You need to discuss that.
Dave, there is a senator contact spreadsheet that people would like to know information about.
Say it again, Senator. Contact
spreadsheet.
Is that the link? What are they asking? Is that the link to the Senate their state senators?
I believe so. Military Morphs asks, please mention the senator contact spreadsheet that has been created. And I don't know if you have something that was created somewhere or if Phil did.
Must be going around social media or something, but the website that's in the description automatically does that when you put in your address.
You're correct. So real quick, I kind of want to wrap it up here. So get in those donations within the next couple of minutes, please and thank you. But Phil, where do we go from here? What do we do right now, and what can we do? I just want to real quick just say that there's a lot of misinformation that gets spread about these things on social media. When something like this happens, you have 50 comments. Some people just, have no clue what they're talking about, and it causes misinformation. When something like this happens, get your information from the USARK website, and don't believe anything that isn't on the USARK website. So with that being said, now that I've just completely put you on the spot, what do we do? Where do we
I
go?
am not on the spot because there are 3 quick misconceptions that I got to get to before I get to the what can we do.
Yes, okay, so perfect.
One of the big ones going around is people say this is only wild animals and wild caught animals. That has nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter if it's captive bred or wild caught because it's a species. So it doesn't matter if your leopard gecko was captive bred or wild caught in Afghanistan. It's the species. It doesn't matter where it came from. So that's a big misconception that's floating around. Another one we had a couple people contact us about was Amendment 599. So there was actually an amendment that was introduced that would have removed Section 71102, but the amendment did not pass. So depending on which government website you look at, it will show that amendment. But again, that Amendment 599 did not pass, It did not remove this Lacey Act section. So the Lacey Act section is still there. And the third one, you know, if USARK is ever wrong, we'll come out and admit it. But I mean, we've had people confusing FWS and FWC. We just had some people leave a 1-star comment on our website because he sent us a year-old article from FWC thinking that that's what was going on here and that only 16 species were going to be listed. So again, if someone wants to get upset, that's fine. There's nothing we can do about it. But please just look at the USARK alerts before you ask any questions. We'll be more than happy to clear them up. We appreciate it when people actually go and read the language. If you have questions about it, just let us know. That Facebook page is just blown up, and there's been so many times where we've gone in and answered the same question. And again, we appreciate people actually taking more than just our word for it. We have no problem with that. But again, just go look and see what we're saying. We're not going to misrepresent any of this. And as far as what you can do right now, it's just making noise. So as Ryan alluded to earlier, we've seen this every year. This is a more advanced version, but we've seen this every year since we won our lawsuit. And unfortunately, it's probably going to keep coming back. But at some point, if we make enough noise, if we get the hundreds of thousands of people commenting that there should be, rather than just a few hundred, next year, if somebody talks about Lacey Act amendments to address injurious species, Congress is going to go, whoa, do you remember all those phone calls and emails and faxes we got last year?
Yep.
I'm not touching that thing. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's a big part of it. It's the amount of people that make noise that can stop us from seeing this next year or for possibly the next 5 years.
Gotcha. When will we hear something about this bill moving forward after the budget? When can we expect to hear something next as to what's going to happen here?
Yeah, so that's what's going to happen. We're encouraging people right now to just keep using our alert, contacting their senators through their website portals. And maybe 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to ask for another big push because Senate's going to come back into session. They're taking a 2-week recess. Their first priority is going to be the budget, and then they'll probably start looking at these economic strength bills, which were, again, S-1260 and H.R. 4521. They're going to look at those again and reconcile them, and this may possibly come up in as early as the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. It may be a little bit longer than that, but again, just follow USARK, watch for our alerts, and you don't even have to. Obviously, we appreciate a paid membership, but if you don't have money right now, just go sign up for our email alerts. Go to usark.org, type in your email address, and hit submit, and then you'll get our newsletters.
Awesome. Ryan, any last words?
Yeah, from here on out, anybody that buys a bulb at a show from Vivtech from me, I'll pay $20. I will take $20 off it if you go buy your membership if you're not one when you come up.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Erica, last words. Erica, turn on your mic. There you go. Erica, last words.
Ditto.
That's word. That was word.
Realistically, like everybody stay diligent, pay attention, watch USARK, sign up for the emails, be a member if you can. I get it. It's not always, but like if you're selling animals, take 5% of the sale and set it aside for this. Consider it your taxes to keeping your hobby. Whatever you need to tell yourself or, to budget it in, but think of ways to help out. And seriously, that membership is important just because it protects you when in the case that there is another lawsuit, this stuff happens. If USARK members get the ability to do something and you're not one of them, you don't get to buy your membership after that and get included. Right. So you can be a part of it or you can be somebody who wishes they were when that happens.
Real quickly, Dave, I got to touch on that because I remember the drama that happened during our lawsuit. So it was the court that decided that only USARK members got a temporary injunctive relief. USARK didn't ask for it. They didn't say, hey, just watch out for our members. We had nothing to do with it. That was 100% decided by the court and Judge Moss.
Yeah, so, but yeah, absolutely. But in that case, and in cases where that is a thing that could happen a lot because USARK is an organization made up of paid members. So that could happen again, and it could end up like that. And again, it also shows in my eyes, and this is just for me, and it shows me that you actually put your money where your mouth is and you care. Anybody can say they support something. Anybody can say that they care about something, but actively being a part of it and actively doing something, that's where you get my respect as being somebody who is going to do something to make the changes they want to see and be a part of it. And being a member is being a part of it. All the other stuff is amazing, but being you can be a Fairweather fan and donate a thing to an auction and think it's great and love being a part of the night, but being a member is something that you do because that's what's right.
Because then you get counted.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, this is why I don't do last words, because
Whatever.
All right, guys, I want to thank you.
3 minutes,
all.
that was short for me.
Guys, I want to thank you all for being on this very first live broadcast on this channel. I was really nervous because I really am. I didn't know how to make all this happen 24 hours ago. But it worked out well, I hope. Keep the conversation going. You can watch this video after it's live on this channel. Phil, thank you so much for taking time out from your busy schedule to be here. Ryan and Erica, love you guys. Thank you so much for being out here. Phil and Ryan, we will see you this weekend down in Arlington, Texas. I am actually supposed to be on, or was scheduled to be, somewhere over the Pacific right now. That's not going to happen. So I'm going to Texas.
You're spooning in my room.
That's right. That's right. I'm crashing in your room. Thank you for that. I will eat lots of chili before I get down there.
Erica can't make it, so somebody's got to cuddle with me.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who donated. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
And wow, this is a live stream, not one of my regular videos. I have no idea how to end this other than to just simply say thank you and rattle on.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Sweet.
Thanks, guys.